Let's practice data preparation together. I'm going to be using the Preppin data website that I talked about in my last video that hosts weekly data preparation challenges. So to do that, we're going to click on the challenges tab, and then we're able to see the entire list of challenges. They actually started off the year with 1 month for beginner challenges and another month for intermediate challenges and another for advanced challenges. Let's go ahead and start with the first challenge for 2023. When you first open up the week 1 2023 challenge, you're greeted with a rundown of what Preppin data is. If you want a breakdown, check out my latest video. So let's jump right into it. In this challenge, you're giving data for a fake bank, which you're able to download from the challenge page. If we do a quick run through of the data, it's got 5 columns. One has a transaction code, then a value, a customer code, a column that tells you if the transaction was done online or in person, and then a transaction date. So very simple data set, just 5 columns. Then they show us the requirements. We're going to input the data, split the transaction code to extract the letters at the start of the transaction code, and then rename that field. We're going to rename the values in online or in person field, then change the date to be the day of the week. And then they ask us for 3 different outputs. All right, so now we're in Tableau Prep. I'm going to hit connect data to connect to the sample data that was given to us by the challenge. It's a CSV file. All right, so now I've input the data. And if we look down here, I can see all the different columns that we talked about before. So that was the first requirement. We input the data. That's done. Now it wants us to split the transaction code to extract the letters at the start of the transaction code. And this is what identifies which bank it's talking about. So we're going to click here on the plus sign and we're going to add a clean step. And if we go to transaction code, you can see they all have a prefix as DS and a bunch of numbers. This one says DSB, this one says DTB, right? So all of those are different bank codes. And what the requirement's asking us is we want to split that. We want to split the DS and then the numbers. So to do that in Tableau Prep, I'm just going to click here in the 3 dots, split values, and then I'm going to do a custom split. And I'm look for that dash, and I'm going to say split off the first field. And that leaves us with 3 values, DS, DSB, and DTB, which are 3 banks. The other requirements to rename this, instead of transaction code, I'm going to name it bank. All right, so it's that easy. We made a new column that says bank, and it's got the value for all 3 of the banks that are in the data set. All right, the next requirement is to rename the values in the online or in-person field, which as you can see, we get a 1 or a 2. In this case, 1 means it's an in-person transaction, and number 2 means it's an online transaction. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but we're going to go with the simplest route for this exercise. So first, we got to change it from a number to a string, right? So now I can take text, and I'm just going to double click on the 1, and I'm going to say online. And I misspelled it. I'm going to say online. And now every value that had a 1 now says online instead. And I'm going to do the same thing for number 2, in person. And now that requirement is done. The next requirement has to do with the transaction date. Instead of seeing the actual date, we want to see what day of the week the transaction happened in. So to do that is very simple. We're going to click the 3 dots here and convert dates. And we're just going to click day of the week. And just like that, now it's just telling me the number of transactions that happened on every single day. Now that we've cleaned this data, it wants 3 different outputs. The first one is the total values of transactions by each bank. So what does that mean? We need to click here on the plus sign, and we're going to add a new aggregate function. After you add the aggregation, you're going to see a group field and an aggregated field. So basically, think of it as a pivot table. These are your rows, and these are the values in the columns. So number 1, we know we want to see the number of transactions, the values of the transactions by each bank. So to do that, I'm just going to add the bank field, and I hold it, and I'm going to throw it into the group fields, right? So now it's got every bank, and now I want to see the value of all the transactions. So I'm going to grab that value field, and I'm going to throw it in the aggregated fields. Then I'm going to go back to my aggregation, and I'm going to add an output. And that will let us see what the new file will look like. And we can see we got DTB Bank with 618,000, the DS Bank with 653,000, and DSB Bank with 530,000. So that's output 1. Output 2 is going to be the total values by bank, day of the week, and type of transaction. So we're going to go back to our clean step and add another aggregation. And here, we're going to grab our bank, we're going to grab our online in person, and our transaction date. And then again, the value, as that's the field that we want to aggregate. We go back to our aggregation, add an output, and now we can see here is DSB Bank for Friday, for in-person, that's our value. And if we compare that to the sample output in the website, we can see it's a complete match. Now for the third output, it wants us to output total values by bank and customer code. So again, we're going to go back to our clean 1 step, add another aggregate step, and then just drag and drop the fields that it wants. So it wants bank, customer code, and it wants to see the aggregation of the values. We add another output step, and if you see down here, that's going to match perfectly what it should look like on the website. And that's it. Now you've got 3 different ways of looking at the data, either by bank and customer code, just by bank and value, by bank, transaction date, online, in person, and the value. And that's it. Hopefully that gives you a better idea of what data preparation is and how you can practice it. Let me know if you have any questions and follow me for more data content.